And welcome to the Aaron Katzman Show. I'm your host, Aaron Katzman. We speak about your life, your money, and your investments. And as always, we're coming to you from the spiritual and soon-to-be financial capital of the world, Jerusalem, Israel. If you like this content, please hit the like button below. And if you've not yet done so, hard to believe, please subscribe to both the YouTube channel and the podcast. We are continuing on with our entrepreneurial series, but with a twist, because we're going to do a combination this week. We're going to speak about your finances and your money and how that jives with being an entrepreneur. It is my pleasure to bring on to the show Aaron Frolich, who is one of a handful of English-speaking certified financial planners, CFPs, in Israel, and is passionate about setting people up for financial success. He helps his clients regain control of their finances, save thousands of shekels, grow their wealth, develop a strategy to achieve financial success, and most importantly, gain peace of mind. He has over 14 years of experience in capital markets, assisting private and institutional clients. Aaron, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's my pleasure. So you are CEO of a company called Green Peak Advisors. There must be something behind the name, but we'll get into that a little later, okay? What is Green Peak Advisors?
Okay, so I started Green Peak Advisors about a year ago after completing the CFP in Israel. And it's a company that we focus on creating financial success for our clients. It's holistic financial planning. We do financial consulting as well. And the idea is that we bring someone from maybe a place of uncertainty regarding their financial situation to a place of certainty, building out customized financial plans for them.
How do you do that?
So normally the process starts when we do holistic financial planning. We do, first of all, a bdikat tik, where we basically create the basis for the financial plan. Most people don't really understand where they are, how they're positioned, whether it's on their investment side, on their retirement accounts, other type of savings accounts. They don't know what's going in their account and what's going out of their account. So we help people understand their budget and their cash flow. Obviously, free cash flow that they have at the end of the month can then be used in order to fund various goals. So that the first stage is really to set the stage by creating a bdikat tik, understanding what the financial circumstances are, and then we can build out an actual financial plan that can talk about their goals, their long, short-term, and medium-term goals, because the idea really is not about trying to grow your wealth. The idea is to really be able to do what you want to do in life, and using money to get there. So we build out a customized investment strategy. We work with other partners along the way. So we review, from your loans and your mortgages to pension, insurance. Obviously, we work with other portfolio managers like yourself to then actually allocate the funds and invest the money, taking into account the client's tax status. So, for example, if they're American and you have all sorts of U.S. tax complexities when you live abroad, so working with a portfolio manager that understands that those complexities is very important. And hopefully going forward, I become, your financial doctor, as they say, your financial advisor going forward to review and give oversight.
So I think that's really important. A lot of people turn to me and they say, I have X amount of money and I want to invest it. And I say, great. And then we sit down and we start talking, and they sometimes grow a little impatient because they wanted me to create an investment plan. And my approach also is the investment plan very often is the last piece of the puzzle, right? You have to understand what it is that the person's goals are, what their needs are, and what they actually have. So what would a meeting sort of, I call you up as an American, right? You open the Pandora's box when you mention Americans, but let's speak about that, right? I'm an American who's been living in Israel for, 15 years, and I work in high tech, and I've got my salary. What is it that you can sort of provide for me and help guide me because of all of those sort of stumbling blocks that are put out there in the regulatory field, the regulatory minefield of being an American citizen abroad?
So, I mean, when someone comes to me in the beginning, it's obviously about first gathering data, about the individual, about, whether it's a family, a couple. We first, set the stage, understanding all the, ins and outs about, salary, about your retirement accounts, insurances. I think a lot of value I bring first and foremost is just, like I said, even at the Bdikatik stage where we can make all sorts of optimizations and adjustments. Like you mentioned earlier, meaning a lot of people say, "Oh, I have $100,000. What do I do with it?" Right? And I take a step back on them because what I did previously was manage portfolios, and that's a specific niche within financial planning. First we want to determine, what the strategy, needs to be for that money. Meaning, what are the actual goals for the money? And then it can be invested in a different way to achieve those goals. So if it's, for example, the main goal is to be able to have a down payment on an apartment in the next 2 to 3 years, you're going to invest that money differently than if it's for long-term retirement savings. In terms of the American thing that you're bringing about, I think that, part of what I do is I explain different complexities. I'm not a tax advisor, obviously, and, everything should be reviewed by an accountant, but concepts about what types of investments are available in Israel that you can utilize, and going through the different ins and outs of pros and cons of the approaches. I go through that a lot with clients who are not as familiar with it. And then obviously when we come to investing the money at that point, we create the strategy around what's available and what's appropriate for them. So that's I would say in terms of how I approach Americans. And a lot of times people aren't working yet with the right professionals as well. So part of what we do, I think both of us, we leverage our professional networks, and we help our clients work with the right professionals, whether it's on tax, on succession planning. You'd be surprised how many things come up in financial planning that you wouldn't think about. For example, a lot of people don't even have wills. For example, I have a client now. She's divorced. She has, a child from a previous marriage. She got remarried. She has another child. She doesn't have a will, and she has inheritance coming from other places in the United States. And, there's a lot of things to work through. And this is all part of, working with a financial planner to put all the pieces together so that hopefully when you come out of the 2 to 3 month process, you feel like you're in control. You feel like you're in the right direction. It doesn't mean that it's not dynamic and that you have to have a refresh every so often, but at least you're now you're able to now focus your time on your careers, on your family, on other things that you really want to be focusing on. And therefore it should hopefully give you peace of mind and, lower the stress level.
So after they sort of have that initial process with you, where you mentioned 2 months or what have you, how often do you think it's prudent for people to follow up with you? Or do you think they have a plan for life?
Yeah, so I think that first of all, certain things, certainly on an annual basis, you should meet with a financial advisor, whether it's your portfolio manager or someone like myself who also does other things as well. It's healthy to, just like I always compare it to, physical health. Just like you'd go to a doctor at least every year for a checkup, you need to go to a financial doctor every year. I'm not a mumche in every single, thing. I'm like your general physician, so I'm going to direct you to the right person. But I think it's very healthy to pay for a consultation, or if you have it as part of your, retainer model with me, that's part of, that service. So certainly on an annual basis to review your portfolios, to review your returns. I don't think you should be looking at your portfolio every month or even every quarter necessarily. It doesn't, you don't have to, be focused on your investments that, in that kind of resolution. So certainly semi-annual annual checkups are very important. And also, I think that having a financial advisor as a sounding board when critical decisions come up. I have a client now who literally just began the process, and he's already talked to me. Well, I'm looking for an apartment to buy, and I have this leverage, and should I take this, money out of it, and should I keep being leveraged? And as I'm able to then give him some sense of what the options are, what the ramifications are. We haven't even built out a financial plan yet, but I'm already like their financial advisor, helping them make critical decisions that are going to have a big impact on going forward. So
That's great. Do you also work, one of the questions, or even what I read, right, on various groups and articles, that both new olim, new immigrants to Israel, or potential immigrants to Israel, potential olim, are sort of overwhelmed in certain respects by when they get a job here, or the whole employment angle, because Israel pays, they have their different programs for social benefits which employees get. Some are mandatory, some are out of the generosity of the employer. Is that something that you've run up against? People just don't have a clue, and they make what can be long-term financial mistakes just by sort of going with the flow and not speaking to somebody like you to discuss that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I'll answer that question with an example. Like I have a client that came to me, and if I was working in this 10 or 15 years ago when he set up his retirement accounts in Israel, I'm not talking about having another 100,000 shekels or 200,000 shekels in the retirement accounts. I'm talking about if he made certain decisions differently and he had made optimizations and been on top of these things, all the time. I'm talking about millions of shekels he would have had in his, potentially have in his retirement accounts, because he was put into, very expensive pension funds, and he was probably sold, a bunch of, taken advantage of, sold something that he wasn't, that would have been better for him to not be in. He was in investment tracks that were really not appropriate for long-term retirement savings, and he probably wasn't explained how, properly the system. So I think part of what our job is as olim, as people that understand the financial situation and the local, marketplace, it's our job to help, olim, and that's part of why I moved from wealth management, doing portfolio management, to financial planning, was I felt that there's a real demand and a real need for olim and for this market. People who are coming off the boat really don't understand how the system works here, whether it's on insurance coverages, on which is basically your risk management, right? I would say a lot of things I do for clients is even on the risk management and insurance coverages that they may not be aware of, or overly insured or underinsured, not really understanding the right questions to ask their agents, or their, it could be that their sochen bituach and their insurance agents are lovely people, but they're also looking at it from their perspective. I'm able to give an objective opinion, looking at everything in totality, in context. How much life insurance do you have? Well, that really depends, right, on a lot of different factors. It's not just because your insurance agent says, oh, you have a great deal on 1,000,000 shekels. You need to look at everything, in totality. So I do think it's our job to help the olim, to help people moving here who need help. And I also try to add as much added value, whether it's because I've experienced, for example, from currency transfers when I worked in a company that did currency exchange. So I can then help them bring their money over in an efficient way and save the money that way. So there are all sorts of different things. Like I have a client that I did a whole dikatik for him, and he said, Aaron, you know what? The best thing that you did for me was, I work in pounds. All my savings were in pounds. And my heart was palpitating every time I would go into my bank account, because the shekel and the shekel was strengthening so much against the pound. And you pushed me to figure out how to convert my money, where now I got a discount at the bank and I'm getting great rates at the bank. And I had leverage because you told me to use this other company. And in the end, the bank gave me what I wanted. You told me exactly what to do. And now I'm saving 5,000 shekels a year just on conversion, So I think that we can really add a lot of value to our clients, not just on the specific job that we're doing, but also helping them understand the language here, understanding the banking system here. And like you mentioned initially regarding, I think a big black box is pension and retirement in Israel, especially for young people making aliyah, where they're basically going to be making, having their retirement accounts here. Positioning themselves up for success is really important. I just spoke to a young lady today, single. I'm sure that she probably doesn't have great domain management fees on her accounts. And I'm sure she's not in the right investment tracks, because she just goes in, the default is this, and suddenly, and then, if you didn't change it or you weren't on top of it, then 5 years down the road, it's really chaval. So, I hope that answered the question.
Okay. Let's change gears a little bit. You are also an immigrant to Israel. You've been in Israel for how long?
I've been in Israel since 2002. So what is that? Over 20 years?
20 years.
Basically,
okay.
I came after high school and didn't leave, and I did the army, and then made Aliyah officially in 2006.
Okay. And you have your own business now, right? I don't know if when you grew up, you sort of dreamed of having your own business, but it sort of fell in your lap. And you mentioned some of the reasons, right? You saw that there was a need. Oftentimes from the whole series we've done, oftentimes people have started businesses because of something they're involved with, and then they see that there's like a niche which is not being attended to, and they decide to jump in and open their company. What's it like for the potential entrepreneurs out there? What's it like to actually own a company in a foreign country, right? In Israel, with a different business culture and all the regulatory burdens that come along with it. What's that process like?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's definitely a challenge, and on the same time, it's really rewarding so far. I would say that kind of my journey to where I came is interesting because I worked in wealth management for many years. I was a licensed portfolio manager with the Israel Securities Authority. I thought I had a career in portfolio management, and then at a certain point, I kind of reached sort of where I reached at that company, and I wasn't sure what direction I was. And because we're in Israel, everybody said, "Oh, you got to get into high tech. That's where you got to be." A lot of people do well in high tech, and I tried moving into high tech. I was trying for a number of years to move into high tech. Maybe the HR manager sensed that I wasn't what I was passionate about, and I did a couple of different things in between. And then I was working with someone else, still in finance, but he had a U.S. company, and I was doing some consulting for him. And someone came up to approach me about their portfolio and helping them set up a portfolio and this and that. And then it dawned on me that like I should just be doing this for myself, meaning I should go back into advisory and maybe with a different type of hat, meaning not managing money in-house, but helping people reach their financial goals and becoming a financial planner, broadening basically the scope and broadening what I do. And then the idea of doing the CFP, was natural, and I looked into it, and also felt, there really are a handful of us that are Anglo that understand the mentality, that also understand the local situation. Meaning a CFP in America cannot really transplant himself to being a CFP in Israel without undergoing a certain amount of knowledge and learning, because the systems are so different in each jurisdiction. And basically that transition from working for someone else to working for myself, I mean, you did it yourself, obviously, and there's a lot of bumps in the road. Obviously, you're trying to generate business and find new clients and understand which clients you really want to be focusing on and working with, and testing out different things. So, I think there's a lot of testing going on. In the beginning, I really wanted to do primarily holistic financial plans. And then I've really recognized that some people it's not appropriate for, they don't want to make that investment, or it's just, their family situation doesn't really deem that type of service necessary at this point. And I can also offer, more financial consulting, which will give them value and allow me to then work with, a broader range of clients.
So you really need, what you're sort of saying is, and I think we've heard this over and over again, you can't, be a square, right? You have to be very flexible, right? In your business. It's sort of like the life in Israel, right? You never expect necessarily to be where you end up, but that flexibility is what allows you ultimately to sort of maneuver and get where you need to be, right?
Yeah, and I think that doing the CFP for me, other than just like broadening my, professional understanding and learning, and joining that cadre of professionals that hold this CFP, it's actually a relatively limited amount of people that we're trying to add and trying to get the word out that financial planning is really important. Israelis, especially, don't really understand what a CFP is. In America, it's very straightforward. You work with a financial planner, a certified financial planner. Again, the marketing around CFP in Israel is still young, and they're still trying to get the word out. But I do think that being part of that organization, I've also got myself more involved with the organization. I joined the Vada Court of the Lishka because I want to give back and I want to be more involved. And I think that being part of that organization is very important. I think whether it's reviewing new things going on, things are always very dynamic when it comes to regulations and that kind of thing. Having more access to other professionals that have specializations For example, in retirement planning in Israel is very complicated. You really need to work with a professional that really understands the different things. And I myself would, at this point, if someone came to me right before retirement in Israel, I would also, refer them to, a specialist in that area, for example. So I think that's very important too.
One tip, right? Somebody is thinking of they're either already here in Israel and they're toying with the idea, or they're about to board a nefesh b'nefesh plane and come here with and implement their business idea. What would be like one tip you'd give someone who's contemplating opening up a business here in Israel?
I think that to do the market research, to understand what your market's going to be, and who you want to be working with, so that you can then focus your marketing efforts on those type of clients. I kind of just like said, okay, I'm just going to build a website. I'm going to go for it. I didn't really in the beginning strategize too much in terms of, I guess developing the marketing strategy. And then so to speak, as I've gone along, I've kind of developed, who I really want to be working with, who I think I can bring the most value to. There are a lot of organizations, for example, that are also helping people that are having financial difficulties, and they've reached out, and I'm trying to figure out a way that I can also be involved as a financial planner for the Anglos, at least. People that it's not so simple. I mean, people are struggling in Israel financially, just making ends meet, or just not able to figure out how they can kind of push forward and create wealth. So I think that tip, understanding your market, understanding where you think you can bring the most value to. Someone just today asked me about, he was thinking about doing the CFP even. And I said, it's an investment in money and time, and you have to really think about whether the CFP is going to help your business. Like, is that something that you want to be doing? Is that something that's going to add value to you and your clients? Or is it something nice to write, at the end of your name? So I think being strategic and understanding, what value you're trying to bring, and seeing which clients you can help is important.
That's great. This is good stuff. How can people get in touch with you?
Online, Facebook. You see me on social media, LinkedIn. Obviously, I have a website, www.greenpeakadvisors.com. My phone number is 054-320-8077, and Aaron@greenpeakadvisors.com is my email. So those are the ways that people can reach me. I'm happy to do a free consultation in the beginning, just to see, what services you're looking for and see if I can help. And yeah, those are my contact details.
And we'll put that contact information in the notes of the show as well. So when people go in to the video or to the podcast, it'll be right there and they can contact you. Thank you so much for coming on. This was really, really interesting.
Thank you very much too. It was a pleasure.
I appreciate that. You've been tuning in to the Aaron Katzman Show. We speak about your life, your money, and your investments. Again, if you liked this bit of content and it was interesting, what was there not to like? Hit the like button below. And if you've not yet done so, please hit the subscribe button. Please subscribe to both the podcast and the YouTube channel. Thanks so much for tuning in, and we'll speak to you soon.